So what are those American tariffs up to again? Big companies mostly stayed silent about the tariffs, but Trump was defeated by a small wine importer. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about those Trump tariffs that were supposedly struck down by the court as illegal, because it's actually quite an interesting story. Stay with us and keep listening if you want to know more. So let's start the story from the beginning. Trump came into office and started waving around tariffs. He started talking about how drugs were flowing into the United States through the Mexican and Canadian borders, that this was causing the opioid crisis in the United States, and based on that, as president, he had the emergency right to impose tariffs. The American president has this right precisely so that America can act very quickly in case their national interests are actually threatened, that America is threatened, or if American citizens are in danger, then the president has the right to impose certain tariffs on specific countries if a problem originates from that country or if that country poses a threat to you. This argumentation, let's say, could have worked fairly well with Mexico and Canada, even though it's not entirely true. But if we say that a lot of drugs flow across those borders, causing problems in the United States, and also that there are cartels operating there that cause crime in the United States. Sure, regarding Canada, it's pretty shaky. Regarding Mexico, it's debatable, but at least you have this argument that the United States was threatened or was being threatened, and therefore the president should have the right to impose that tariff, that security tariff, to resolve the situation. Otherwise, the president doesn't have the right to impose tariffs. It's unconstitutional. Only Congress has the right to do these things. Congress holds the purse. Congress deals with these things. Congress deals with taxes. Congress deals with tariffs. So here, however, it could still be justified by the fact that there are those alleged drugs. As for blanket tariffs on the whole planet and on the European Union and so on, the argument that everyone has been screwing over, ripping off, and impoverishing the United States for a long time couldn't really fly. And it couldn't fly for several reasons. First of all, it's not really something that's happening right now and needs to be dealt with urgently. And it doesn't need to be dealt with in the name of the United States because the United States is suddenly threatened. If the United States has been getting screwed over by Europe for, say, 50 years, then that's not an emergency. It's not simply a state of emergency where the president should intervene, where this presidential right to impose tariffs should be used, because it's a long-term issue, and in that case, Congress should be the one to intervene or decide on this matter. That's the first point. But let's say that Trump could actually impose it as if it's happening and as if it's a problem, then the question is whether it's really happening. Because for the last 50 years, the United States has dominated world trade. They had enormous influence in Europe. No one could compete with them. And basically, they took advantage of the system they themselves created after World War II during the Cold War, and they created it to benefit the United States. So the claim that someone is cheating the United States, that we're making them poorer or threatening them, it's nonsense for one thing because it's not true. It's a system that the United States created to profit from, and they did profit from it. And besides that, it's a long-term system. Even though it's a long-term system that you profit from, if you want to say that it threatens you, you can't say that it's an acute threat to you now when it's a long-term system. So for these reasons, there was a high chance that the court would overturn it because it was simply unconstitutional, and it still is unconstitutional. However, someone had to be found who would strike at it, who would solve it, who would file a lawsuit. Some of the bigger ones let it be because they thought that such tariffs could easily destroy their small competition while they themselves would survive it. However, the small and medium-sized businesses started to speak up, started to file lawsuits, and started to challenge it. So the courts had to deal with it. And the courts showed that it was nonsense, that the tariffs were illegal, that they were unconstitutional. Now, the question is how the American administration will respond to this. Because if something was done unconstitutionally, if something was done against the law, then it should never have been valid, and therefore the tariffs should be returned. They should be returned, and now there's this little thing that around Donald Trump, there are people who own companies. And those companies specialize in buying up some customs debt from other companies. Let's say there's a company that doesn't have the money, or because of tariffs, it lost some money and is somehow in debt or owes on tariffs or something like that. That company owes about $1 million in tariffs. People connected to Trump come in, his colleagues, his associates who own these companies, or their families own these companies, and they say to this business, okay, you owe on tariffs here, or you paid $1 million in tariffs here. There is a possibility that these tariffs are illegal and that they will be refunded later. I'll buy this thing from you here, this right to a tariff refund, and I know it cost you $1 million. But I'll buy it from you for $100,000 because the chance that it won't be refunded is quite high. Here you have $100,000, and if the tariff is refunded, if it ends up being refunded, if the state eventually decides to refund it, then I get the $1 million, not you. You get $100,000 right now. Many people and companies agreed because it helped them in a tough situation. And now we're in a situation where these people who actually have their money tied up in the claim that the tariffs are illegal are now defending that the tariffs are fine. In other words, they have invested in the idea that the tariffs are illegal and they continue to invest in these illegal tariffs, but politically they fight for the tariffs being fine and that the president should have the right to impose them. From that, I come to a simple conclusion. Those people, since money is more important than ideas in the current American administration, simply want to maintain the whole situation with the tariffs, the uncertainty, the companies going into debt because of the tariffs, and so on. They want to prolong it as much as possible so they can buy up as many of these tariff debts or these tariff fees as they can. But in the end, the state will refund those tariffs, and the people around Donald Trump will make a huge amount of money from it. So right now, these blanket tariffs that Donald Trump imposed illegally have been overturned by the court. But the court overturned them only on the grounds that they were illegal from the perspective of the state of emergency. However, these are already laws that give Donald Trump the right to impose those tariffs or to impose those blanket tariffs. However, these are already laws that give Donald Trump the right to impose those tariffs or to impose those blanket tariffs only for a certain period of time. And after a certain amount of time has passed, I think it's about 3 or 4 months, then the state of those tariffs really has to be extended by Congress. Congress will change this year. There is a high probability that more Democrats than Republicans will get into Congress. And therefore, after some time passes, after the period ends when Donald Trump can keep those tariffs according to some new law or regulation or another law or regulation, so after those XXY months pass, there will already be Democrats there, and they will prohibit Donald Trump from continuing this tariff policy. They'll say, no, you can't do that, period. It was illegal. The court said it's illegal. We say it won't happen. So the tariffs will start to be rolled back. At that moment, the Democrats are canceling the tariffs. They're canceling the tariffs. The state has to return those tariff nonsense. But they're no longer returning them to the companies that paid the tariffs and went into debt. Because of it, they're giving them back to Donald Trump's buddies. Because of that, of course, the American state is losing money. And what does Donald Trump say? Donald Trump says, so now America has to return the tariffs. Now we just have debt. Now we're simply not making money because the Democrats canceled those tariffs. Until now, it was running so smoothly. Until now, it just worked. Until now, it was perfect. But the Democrats who won the election canceled the tariffs, and now America has to return those tariffs. Is it just a coincidence that they're returning them to my buddies who had money invested in it and are doing business in this industry? Like, it's the Democrats who are giving it back to them, not me. It's not my fault. The Democrats messed it up. And what? That our economy isn't doing well, that we're only growing by 2%, while under Joe Biden it was 3 or 3.5%? Well, that's because the Democrats canceled those tariffs. They're sabotaging me. It's their fault. They're the ones holding the purse. If they had kept those tariffs, we'd still be collecting money, we'd be rich. Companies would be flocking to us, of course, and on top of that, we wouldn't have to return customs fees to those people who had already bought things. So it's the Democrats' fault, not mine. Vote for Mark Rubio in the next presidential term because he'll probably run, or Vance, it's hard to say. In any case, yeah, this is the business around Trump's tariffs. And I'll tell you honestly, the guy has it really well thought out because he lets his friends get rich, his friends and the families of his friends. And on top of that, he can blame it on the Democrats because the Democrats will remove the tariffs and then, thanks to the Democrats, it will probably have to be reversed somehow, which will be a fascinating sight when they start dealing with it. In this regard, I really agree a lot with Martin Rota, and I have to say I'm actually quite sorry that the tariffs won't stay, because thanks to that, it would be clear to see what a huge bullshit it is to impose blanket tariffs and sabotage and destroy the international trade order that actually allowed America to get rich. And Donald Trump is now destroying that. And as a result, America is either stopping to get richer or is getting richer more slowly. So this thing about removing the tariffs seems unfortunate to me because I was expecting and wanted to see it just blow up on the Republicans like an atomic bomb and force them to deal with it. And I'm a bit worried that the court and the Democrats will save America, which won't have the right educational effect. In this regard, it won't work as well as it could. Yeah, and by the way, one last thing, you'll definitely argue, what about Europe? Europe has been ripping America off for a long time. It has huge tariffs on it. Sure, but those tariffs are only on certain things. They're not blanket tariffs. Those tariffs are handled in a smart way so that they work somehow. It's not just a customs nuke thrown out at random. It's not a fee just for being able to sell something in Europe. By the way, now with Mercosur, the customs barrier is coming down again, and people are whining that they don't want the customs barrier with South America to be removed. So that's another thing that, on one hand, people criticize and say that we have with America, North America, with the United States, some tariffs, and Trump is doing the right thing by bringing them back. And the same people are saying, why are you removing tariffs with South America? Bring the tariffs back. Protect our farmers. So that's actually pretty funny too. I just want to say that tariffs themselves aren't nonsense if they're used with consideration, if they're used where they make sense, if they're used where they'll work at some well-calculated rate, then it makes some sense. If they're used simply as a fee for selling things in America, regardless of what you're importing, whether it's cars or matches, it doesn't matter. Everyone will pay 15% or more, then at that point, it's nonsense. It's just a huge scam on American consumers. That's for sure. So that's it. Write in the comments what you think about all this. I think one thing about it, and that is if Trump hadn't used those tariffs, he would be in a much better position. And by the court canceling his tariffs like this, he's losing and has lost a huge amount of political power. But at the same time, he can use it as a weapon against the Democrats when it turns out that things aren't going well, that the economy isn't running smoothly. And at the same time, he can actually help his friends make money from it, which is in line with Trump's selfish goals and the business interests of the Trump family connected to his presidency, which have been well known for a long time. And don't think that in America they have any laws against conflicts of interest, right? They love freedom, not like us in Europe, who hate freedom and therefore ban conflicts of interest in politics, right? By the way, this could happen here too, but it definitely wouldn't be that simple, right? It definitely wouldn't go through as easily as in the glory of free America, where you can easily have a white frontman as president who makes money while you cash in. Let's go. So that's it. Bye. Take care. Support our work and see you next time. I'm going to continue streaming. Now we're going to check out Makinka's chat with Sikorsky about Czech and Polish cooperation in the field of defense. See you.